Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another video here. Today we got another little rant thing. Why Ubisoft is in trouble. And I guess you could argue this is kind of the state of AAA gaming, and or I guess when it comes to Ubisoft quadruple A gaming for some of their games, in a nutshell here. But essentially, I wanted to kind of do Ubisoft as a kind more of a case study, I guess, for this. Ubisoft is not a good spot. Whether you look at their stock prices over the past bit here and where it's been compared to the last 5 or 10 years, it's not doing well. But more so the games themselves, obviously, which obviously tie into the finances because if the games don't do well, they don't make a ton of money and everything, obviously, because lack of sales and all the money they put into it as a big studio and all that. Ubisoft is not doing well. Obviously, Ubisoft has never been let me just go over the knocks on Ubisoft. Obviously, it's a legendary game company. It gets that big for a reason. They have legendary franchises like the Tom Clancy franchise, the Assassin's Creed series, the Far Cry series. They had, if they didn't, kind of ruin that and everything here, they had the Star Wars licensing. They've got obviously some unique IPs that have done pretty well over the years for them. They have stuff like that. This is a legendary video game company for a reason. They've got some bangers back in the day. The original Assassin's Creeds, Black Flag, Far Cry 3, Far Cry 4 is pretty good. Far Cry 5 I loved. They've got some bangers. Rainbow Six Siege, obviously, I think it's maybe gone a little too far and a little too arcadey for a lot of people, but it's hard to deny the impact and, obviously the game is fantastic, or at least it was. If you're, kind of a glass half full type of guy in the current state of Siege, it's a legendary game. They've had some fucking bangers, but Ubisoft right now is not in a great spot. The one knock that's always been against them is their launcher. People don't like secondary launchers and another layer of shit when they go through Steam. If you're a PC gamer like myself, and the gamer doesn't also doesn't work particularly well a lot of the times, and so it's a bit of a frustrating thing there. That's a minor thing on them. Let's get into the games. They've ruined a lot of those franchises that they that I've worked on or that I've mentioned there, as well as the kind of unique one game spin-offs. Not a lot of this have worked out in the past, handful of years here. Let's dive into that a little more. Far Cry is not in a great spot right now. It could be worse, but Far Cry 6 wasn't exactly what they're hoping for, I think. It's a bit, it's not terrible, but it's not a particularly great game either. Probably ranks fairly low on most people's Far Cry tier list scales. I don't think that, again, I have no experience with the first Far Cry game, but I doubt it would rank below something like that. But obviously not that great. New Dawn wasn't terrible again, but it wasn't amazing. It was a bit of a complicated game. It was the sequel to Far Cry 5 and the kind of post-nuclear apocalypse that kind of preceded that game. It was a bit of a DLC game, to be honest. It was a big gimmick. I just got fucking murked. Holy shit. But it was a bit of a gimmicky game. I don't know. It seemed like something that could have been an expansion to Far Cry 5. Kind of almost like Far Cry Primal was kind of a sideshow of a game, and that was kind of different because of different settings. It didn't follow the formula and the general play style of Far Cry, but still, Far Cry is not in the best spot. You get to Assassin's Creed, another absolute, probably their most legendary like series and IP, maybe outside of Siege. Assassin's Creed is not in a great spot. Shadows was a bit of a miss. I don't know that it was. I don't know. It's a bit of an iffy game, a mixed reviews type, if you will, if you're a Steam guy. I actually don't even know what the reviews are for it on Steam, but regardless, not great. Valhalla wasn't amazing. It was a really cool idea, a really cool setting, at least for the first bit of the game until you left said really cool setting. Not hugely well received. That is what it is, though, I guess. Assassin's Creed could be in a better spot right now with their last few game releases. Odyssey wasn't amazing either. I think it was, again, another really cool and interesting setting, but a bit of a bloated game just for the sake of being bloated and having content, I guess. Origins was the last one that was, like, I think above average, in my opinion. Wasn't too bad of a game, but even that was a bit iffy, and it wasn't exactly the same old Assassin's Creed that you remember. Nothing like Black Flag or anything. Nothing on that level of good, you know. Siege, again, you could argue that the game is dying. People always argue that game is fucking dying and that it's, it's gimmicky, it's arcadey. I think there's some merit to that, but it's still, I think they're golden goose as of right now, what they're trying to cling on to. Because I think, that speaks for it. As long as Jinxie's around, maybe. But I don't know. Regardless, that's doing okay for them. But then you go past that, past their like I guess standard series, you could say, they're not in a great spot. Jedi Outlaws wasn't. I mean, that speaks for itself and how bad that was. I think that franchise, that whole new Star Wars game franchise in general, is a bit overrated. All of their games, but I don't think any of them are really particularly good. But obviously, Outlaws not very well received. I'm assuming didn't do well financially. Maybe it did because it's fucking Star Wars. Who knows with that shit? But not a great game. You had stuff like X Defiant come out, supposedly the COD killer. It was not. The game is shut down now. You can't even find it if you or play it if you wanted to. Bit of a flop there, obviously, even though that game, it wasn't like a quadruple A $80 game title or anything. But obviously, since I think it was free at least for the time that you could access it. Unless I'm sure you could buy stuff in it, but still, bit of a flop there. You have again, not a lot of any of their big franchises are there. Avatar game, again, another cool setting, the universe a lot of people like, including myself. Bit of a letdown of a game though, kind of painfully average is what I give that. Didn't really hit the mark there. You've got, coming in the more recent years, I guess, with Skull and Bones, pirate game that was hyped up and beyond belief and put a shit ton of money into it by Ubisoft. It was delayed beyond belief. Even more than like a GTA or Cyberpunk type thing. Not necessarily the release windows from their last game, but like how many times it was fucking delayed after its initial launch. Dates pushed back and the trailers and announcements and everything. That was a spectacular flop. People were really excited because we thought, oh, maybe we'll actually get another really good pirate game from the only company that's ever really made a good pirate game in Black Flag. Sea of Thieves is, it's okay, but the launch speaks for itself there and how the state of that game, at least at launch, it's turned into a decent game, but obviously it is what it is. And people thought, oh, Ubisoft's done this before. They put a shit ton of money and time into this. It's got to be good, right? You are wrong. The first the first quadruple A game by Ubisoft was a spectacular failure in both monetarily, but also just how fucking bad the game was. It was horrible. It launched failed spectacularly. People came and went, and people forgot about that game. Within the month, it was people. That was such a blemish on history. It's hard to describe. The game had so much money into it, so much time into it, a lot of hype. People were wanting this for years and years. It kept getting delayed. And then you almost hear nothing about Skull and Bones now, for a reason, obviously. But it just vanished like a fucking ghost. Nothing has ever been reported on this game really since then. It died off a game that scale and that size and that money. It just vanished like a fucking ghost. It's crazy. Past that, you've got what I think are some of the stupidest ventures, honestly, I've ever seen in my life in gaming. The NFT games. What was the Falcon? Something Captain Falcon or some bullshit like that that Ubisoft tried to get into. Essentially, what it is Ubisoft's really bad attempt at missing the hype train on NFTs by about what is it 5 years now or something since COVID, I guess. Whenever that one of those fucking money laundering schemes took off. I swear to God, that makes no sense to me still to this day. Regardless, horrible attempt and way too late. Essentially, the games were like NFT based, where your profile or like your character that you play the game with, and kind of collected and built up or whatever, was an NFT, and those are like the game keys and slots too. It's like, oh, make sure you don't miss out here. There's only so many generated NFTs, and if you don't get one, you're not getting into the beta of the game or whatever. Yeah, that trust me, that wasn't a problem. The only people got into those games were people who wanted to see how fucking bad the game was. Regardless, that was a huge swing and a miss. One that was a silent launch too. It just kind of randomly came out and then died off without much publicity by Ubisoft and the gaming community at large. Outside of Moist Critical, which if he didn't bring my attention to it, I wouldn't have fucking known at all. But regardless, yeah, puzzling moves from Ubisoft here in the last handful of years. The company's on a downward trajectory with not a lot of hope of a really positive rebound in anything but Siege, I guess, in the forecast for the future there. It's not looking good for them. But I want to expand off of just Ubisoft hate, which is somewhat valid, I guess, and go on to, and I've hated on them in the Why Video Games Too Long video quite a bit too with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. We're on to that's kind of the state of AAA, I guess, if you want to include quadruple fucking A gaming. These games just like these companies aren't hitting. like they used to in almost every regard. The company's game who I'm playing right now, Bethesda, before Oblivion came out, was in a bit of a coffin there. Starfield wasn't great. Prey wasn't that good. Fallout, obviously, with 76, not great. But it's gotten some goodwill back. It had the Fallout TV show, which was really good. It had Oblivion come out. Elder Scrolls 6, please God above, make that good, or that could sink the company. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, it's had its blemishes. You get stuff like 2K or like a lot of the sports game coming, and EA and 2K and all that shit. They have a hard job. How do you make a fucking sports game different every year besides the graphics and the roster? I wouldn't want to be in their position, but their position is what it is. I don't know why anybody still plays 2K these days. Like College Football, I get. I put it in my best games of last year because it's new. We haven't had it for what was a fucking decade or whatever, a little over maybe. It's been a while. They could refresh not only the graphics and rosters, but a lot of systems. They still have a lot they can add into the games for the next coming years. But if you look 10, 15 years down the road, is fucking college football going to be in the same spot as Madden? Almost absolutely, unless something changes in the landscape. That's just the nature of these games. Stuff like that. COD is, I made a whole video on COD, Battlefield, and Halo, the big three of, the shooter genre. They're in, I don't want to say deep shit for COD, but the rest of them are in deep shit. And COD is in a funny position here. They kind of have Warzone was just their golden goose ticket there that they kind of cling on to here. Apart from that, they just, I don't know, they're not in a great spot either. You have EA, obviously everybody's favorite company to hate on, regardless of whether they actually make a good or bad game. But they've had some blemishes, like Anthem is a really good example of that. And again, not a lot of good AAA or quadruple A, especially quadruple A, but even AAA games have been coming out recently. But then you have stuff like AA and indie games come out. Like you have Schedule One, you have Schedule One comes out. You had what's the game on the alien planet with you had the radios or whatever. Made by maybe a furry, I can't remember, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that. But regardless, the game was really popular. You had, a lot of these indie games, Ball the card game or whatever, last year was fucking fantastic. Astrobots, if you want to include that as a AA game, I guess. Last year, obviously, one game of the year. Elden Ring, if From Software, I don't, I feel like they're a AAA studio. Regardless, they're making good stuff and they're not owned by a game company necessarily directly. As of now, I can't remember if PlayStation's acquiring them or not, or if that's gone through at the moment. But you have a lot of these AA games and indie games. You had Baldur's Gate, which again, not a massive company by any means, but not a small one. This is a AA game for sure. You have these games just constantly, especially if you're a Steam user, you see this all the time. But even for consoles and stuff, you see a lot of these just AA games and these indie games just outperforming them, especially in recent years, and it just hasn't been pretty for them. So I think the tides of it's not even the tides turn. I think it's just a readjustment from like bloated companies and games, and they've gotten away from what the core idea and what made them good. Holy shit, my archery is bad. But that's kind of just embarrassing. I'm just watching myself right now on the screen. That's just embarrassing. But regardless, yeah, it's a gone. They don't remember where they came from, and it's a readjustment from indie and AA games that are still in those roots of where they came from. A lot of these corporations just gotten too big and bloated, and they've kind of gotten away from the core idea and essence of what made them a really good game studio in the first place, and what they did that made them super successful for a lot of cases of these companies. It's kind of sad to see, but that's just I think in a lot of ways where gaming is going. And I'm excited to see it, and I'm happy to see it in a lot of ways, especially as game companies or as games and game companies raise fucking prices on these games to $70 to $80 to who fucking knows what GTA is going to cost. I'm still going to buy. Rockstar's example of a AAA game studio I can respect because they've never fucking missed. You got LA Noire, Bully, Red Dead, GTA. It's banger, 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 banger. I mean, they don't miss, so I respect them. But everybody else has, gotten away from what made them great in the first place. I think that's a big problem. I think more people need to be like Rockstar, or more people need to get back to their roots, like a FromSoft or a fucking, Tyler Video Game Studio for Schedule One, or fucking, Baldur's Gate. I can't remember the studio name off the top of my head. That's what we need to get back to. And yeah, Thanks for listening to me ramble, I guess. Leave your thoughts on everything I just said in the comments below. Love to hear from you guys all the time. And yeah, I'll hit you guys in the next video. And like and subscribe if you like the channel video. I'll see y'all.